Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Senator Urquhart.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Mr Scott. On April the 29th, Delimiter ran a column under the headline ABC actively censors NBN issue on Q&A. Minister Turnbull and Van Badham had appeared...
Sorry, Senator Urquhart. I just couldn't quite hear your prologue there.
Couldn't you?
No.
Gee, nobody's ever had trouble hearing me, Minister.
The acoustics in this room aren't fantastic.
Okay.
Sorry.
I will go over it again. On April the 29th, Delimiter ran a column under the headline ABC...
What? Sorry, ran a column?
Delimiter.
Okay, that's the blog site. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Under the headline ABC. So Minister Turnbull and Van Badham had appeared on the previous night's Q&A. Delimiter claims that analysis of the questions submitted to the show before the episode went to air and published online on the ABC site showed that as a consequence of the two panellists' participation, Q&A was inundated with at least many dozens of questions regarding the NBN as a topic in both text and video form. It is unclear how many NBN-related questions in total were submitted, but it is clear that the issue was one of the most popular ones in the pre-show questions submitted. With a list of the most recent 200 questions submitted up until yesterday midday showing some 48 mentions of the term NBN. A number of video questions were also submitted discussing the NBN. So none of the questions were asked, and Tony Jones explicitly shut down several discussions of the NBN which Van Badham attempted to initiate. Is this a case of the ABC consciously censoring?
No, it's not. Senator, as I said earlier, it's live television. We do take lots of questions in, and questions come from the audience. There are questions that are sent in from home. Most of the questions are asked from the audience. And look, a decision is made roughly of the order that they're going to run, but how many questions you can get through and what questions you get to, that very much depends on the evening as it flows. The suggestion that somehow we're not going to cover the NBN, I think just does not stand up under scrutiny. As I said before lunch, 150 NBN stories across radio, TV, news and current affairs and online since September. Mr Turnbull has been the guest on Q&A on a number of occasions, and on very many of those occasions he's been questioned about the NBN. I know that there are some technology blogs out there who are somewhat fevered around coverage of the NBN, as is their wont. That's their beat. But there are other questions, there are other matters of public importance, and Q&A on that night covered those other matters. There's no greater conspiracy that's lying behind it than that. It was just an exercise of judgment and the flow of the live programming on the night.
So is there any analysis that was made to references in the Twitter stream that night?
Oh, I'm not aware of it, Senator. When we look at the Twitter stream, we often look at the volume, but they come in a flood. I think the number when the Treasurer was on Monday before last was close to 70,000 tweets in the hour. I mean, they arrive in a torrent. But often when the program is running, the EP and the team, someone is there checking and putting tweets up on the screen, but basically the program is set and it's a live event and judgments are being made on the floor. So I'm sorry that people didn't think we covered the NBN enough on that particular occasion. On many other occasions we have. I'm sure Mr Turnbull will be back on Q&A. I'm sure there'll be opportunities for him to engage on the NBN again.
Okay, thanks. Now I want to just turn to Nick Ross. So is Nick Ross the editor of the ABC's Technology and Games Online Gateway?
Yes, he is.
Okay, did Mr Ross publish 2 long articles analysing broadband policies in February 2013?
Well, he may well have, Senator. I don't have copies of them here. I'm not particularly aware of them.
Right, can you take that on notice?
Yep.
Thanks, Hugh. So do you know, was this the subject of a segment of Media Watch on the 11th of March 2013 which was critical of Mr Ross?
Again, Senator, I'll have to take that on notice.
So at the time there were sharply different views of Mr Ross's original piece with tech writer Renee LeMay saying Mr Ross represents fantastic value for the ABC's audience, while publisher of Communications Day Graham Lynch said it was unbecoming of acceptable editorial standards. Media Watch said that the reports that Mr Ross had been disciplined were incorrect. Is that the case?
I'll have to take that on notice, Senator. This was over a year ago now. Look, the coverage of the NBN has created some fevered commentary on all sides. And,
But would you not be aware, Mr Scott, if someone was disciplined over a matter?
Not necessarily, Senator. It was over a year ago. I do remember some controversy around the blog and NBN coverage, but the specifics of it aren't at the top of my mind at the moment.
Okay. Are you able, you would take that
Yeah, I'll
on
take that on
notice?
notice, yeah.
Okay. There were no more substantial posts by Mr Ross on the NBN until the 20th of September. On that day after the election, he published a widely cited article that demonstrated the benefits from telehealth that would be enabled by the NBN. Was Mr Ross being prohibited on writing about the NBN before the election?
No, well, fundamentally he's there to edit a website, Senator. That's his role. I'll have to take that on notice.
So you don't know whether he was prohibited?
I think there's been some debate as to his role with the website, but as I said earlier, I mean, we're having ongoing reviews on specialist websites. I mean, I think the ABC runs a lot of websites. I think our feeling is that we should be channeling more traffic to main websites and have more subsections of websites rather than standalone websites. So there's been some debate and discussion around those sorts of things. But on the specifics of Mr Ross, I'll have to take that on notice.
Okay. Does the ABC have any process to ensure that the organisation doesn't self-censor? That is, that various levels of management don't make decisions that they think are in the interests of the organisation rather than the charter?
Well, that's a very big question, Senator. Finally, editorial responsibility for the ABC rests with the board and the senior management team. Editorial policies are presented and they are the expectations which our journalists need to operate under. So when you talk about self-censoring, if self-censoring is exercising editorial judgment to ensure that we adhere to our editorial guidelines, well, yes, we do. We exercise that editorial judgment.
Is that how you see it?
Well, absolutely. These editorial policies, these editorial guidelines are the rules under which our broadcasters broadcast and that we present and create content. If we didn't have those editorial policies, then everyone could make up their own rules and expectations. They set our standards. They set out clearly what the expectation is. And journalists, broadcasters, executive producers need to comply within those editorial policies. And so, yes, there is a constant engagement of EPs and of managers and of editors to ensure that our content reaches the standards that have been set by the board to fulfil our responsibilities under the Charter. So there is no, to my mind, disconnect between the responsibilities of the Charter and our editors or our managers exercising editorial judgment. In a way, I think one of the interesting issues that we have to deal with is, in a sense, at the ABC we want to host a conversation. We want to create a forum where there are a range of views and a range of perspectives. It's not the role of our journalists and reporters to be, they can at time to time provide analysis around issues, but not to be opinionated in how they execute their work. They're to host the conversation. So that's where we expect our managers, our editorial teams to exercise editorial judgment.
Okay, thanks.